So I made a point in my last video, and there's a little bit of a something. Because, so I've heard the arguments for why God's word can be corrupted, while at the same time Muslims say that I don't, I don't know if I need to go on, but I just wanted to kind of say something. Because the thing about God's word that it can't be corrupted, and yet at the same time we don't have any uncorrupted word, that just entirely disproves Islam. But anyways, and the way they try to actually explain that, oh, God's word can't be corrupted except when it is corrupted, it's the way I have heard it explained is, oh, well, God's spoken words, they're basically always going to ring true. If he has a command, it's always going to be true. If he has an idea, it's always true. If there's, something, what he spoke, it'll never corrupt. But the written stuff we actually have down can, it can somehow get changed, which that literally disproves your God, because it literally disproves your God. But saying that, if you can't somehow see that, and once I'm just going to reiterate some of my points. So Israel, basically Muhammad gets this revelation, God's word's been corrupted, I need to go uncorrupt it, and not these words, but basically go, I don't know, go to Israel. God's people are being sorely misled. God's like, Muhammad, I need you to go and get them back. And then Muhammad goes and no one believes him. So first of all, once again, I don't see how this makes any sense. First of all, the word could not have been corrupted. If it was, that literally makes your God nothing. I don't know what word I would use to describe that. Because the thing is, the Christian word, people have tried to corrupt it. For instance, Mormons. Except the word we have, we have a bunch of different things that disprove Mormonism, which I don't know if I want to get into, or if that was something I wanted to say later, but we still have the original. And everything in the original is still true. Because what the original also says is the same thing that your God says. My word cannot be corrupted. And what I tried to make in my last video is that I was thinking about that today, and I'm pretty sure that still means that we're going to have a written word that's, his word's going to last forever. First of all, how does it last forever? We're going to have it. We are actually going to have it. I think I'm pretty sure that's what it's saying. But if a Muslim wants to somehow put their interpretation of how God's word can be corrupted, what they would say is God's spoken word. It's just it's God's spoken word that can't be corrupted. But if that's true, once again, that disproves Islam. Because Muhammad came not just to uncorrupt the word, but to change it. So all of the word that he says, oh, it can't be corrupted, but maybe the written word can be corrupted, but his spoken word can't be corrupted. Yet all this spoken word is now actually changed. And it's actually been changed. Now Mormonism, and they say the same thing. They're like, God's word got corrupted. This is all the truth. This is what it actually is, which, once again, if you look, for instance, I don't know how much they still believe in the Bible, but I was talking to, or wait, no. The point I wanted to make actually disproves Jehovah's Witnesses. But Mormons also, there's a bunch also in the original Bible that disproves Mormonism. But, because I guess what Jehovah's Witnesses believe is that, oh, Jesus was an angel. Because, and I'm like, because I gave a point to them, I'm like, the gospel is that God became a man. And then there's the little kind of a point that I made about that, and they're like, well, Jesus was an angel. And I felt convicted just not to say anything, because I know of a verse that says, well, not exactly. But there's also an entire book that starts out that just goes really in depth. If you look at Hebrews, all of Hebrews basically disproves every single branch of Christianity or that tries to use Jesus. Hebrews. So for instance, it lays out Jesus was not an angel. He's like, have you ever seen an angel that was called the only begotten? Or I think, today I've begotten you, and other things like that. And there's other things about how specifically Jesus is not an angel. He's higher than the angels. He's all these different things. I forget all the other things. But also what it goes in depth is the sacrificial system. Because the thing about Christianity, if you want to say that the point I'm saying is wrong because, oh, well, Christianity changed some things, but it didn't. As Jesus says, I did not come to abolish your law, I came to fulfill it. So there's basically there's some things that about Judaism that Jesus fulfilled. The sacrificial system in Hebrews goes way in depth about how every minute, okay, that's a new word, minute. Every minute detail, okay, I don't like that word, just kidding. Every single detail of the sacrificial system pointed to Jesus. From the priest to the sacrifice to everything being done to the different rooms to what it all accomplishes in the atonement of everything and how Jesus became this perfect priest offering the perfect sacrifice now in the perfect holy of holies of heaven at the right hand of God the Father, being over us all and our atonement and sacrifice and all that stuff. I feel like I could go more in depth into that. There's some theology there. Go to the book. It explains everything of how Jesus is the perfect fulfillment of the law. At the same time, we still have to obey the law. The only laws we don't have to obey is the food laws, because that whole thing kind of was to kind of point to something. Originally, back in the day, I mean, it all was meant to point to something. God has made these things clean. There's branches of Christianity even that are like, I don't know if it's Christianity, but they're like, they think they don't even believe in Gentiles can be saved. And it's like there's verses in the Old Testament that specifically says, I'm going to make a people who are not a people, I will call people my people who were not my people. And stuff like that. Like God's plan was to bring Gentiles in. So then God gives Peter this vision. He's like, don't call something unclean, I've made clean. So yeah, we can't eat these things now. And then all the other laws, like we still really should follow them. Down to not wearing clothing that is woven with two different fabrics. That one also, what people do say who will say that, oh, well, no, that doesn't apply today. Like, I mean, it's not, like, it's still, like, because that whole thing was another thing about kind of the same idea as the meats and stuff, I think. But at the same time, not. Like, you can still even apply it today. It is good not to wear fabrics woven by two different things. And then all the other stuff, all still apply today. Like, if you don't follow them, something is going to happen. So God's word does endure forever. I don't know. There's a spiritual implication of certain laws like that law, but there's also literal things. Muhammad got really angry when people would not believe him. God gives him this revelation. He's like, my people, they're being sorely misled. You got to go to them. You got to go teach them. And then he goes to the Christians and the Jews. I don't know if I need to mention Christians. But go to the Jews, and he goes to God's chosen people, and they don't believe him, and that's when he starts getting violent. And I'm pretty sure psychologists have studied this. I don't know what they found, but I just imagine something that I've actually noticed when I was truly delusional, and I'm is when you think that God told you something, and you think that because God told you it, this would just be so much better, and when you tell people it and they don't believe you, it angers you. I'm pretty sure psychologists have probably looked at this. I don't know if it even matters about psychologists, because like when I just think of it in my head, I can think of why. Christianity took care of all things. There's ideas in Christianity that will prevent that from happening to you. I don't know where I want to go if I need to go somewhere, because like I don't know if I've already pretty much done everything to prove Islam wrong, or if but Islam, he's trying to teach the Jews. They don't believe him. They call him out for being a false prophet. They have a history of killing, well, true prophets, but they love to kill people who are trying to mislead them. And I know I've read stories. The Jews are see Muhammad. They're like, we need to kill him. Like he, what he's doing. And then when they conspire to kill Muhammad, Muhammad hears about it. He's like, oh, I got to go kill him first. And then he goes, kills God's chosen people who he was sent to go teach. And this ain't tracking. In Christianity, when people are, Jews specifically, or whoever, are like, hey, we need to start killing Christians, we don't start conspiring, be like, oh, we gotta have a bite first. The whole reason Christianity exists is because all of our apostles died.